Morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Weekly Spark. You may have noticed I did not have a video up last week. Kind of needed a break, but also I was prepping for a 3-day bead show at an online group that I'm in, and it was just kind of taking all of my focus to switch gears and to get all that ready for taking photographs, editing them, listing, doing some lives, coordinating with the artist friends that I was working with. So last week was just pretty much taken up with that. I just thought I'd come on and say hi since it had been a while since I turned the camera around this way. And so I am going to get back into Weekly Spark, like I normally do. I actually haven't done a page for myself for 2 weeks. There was also a little break there with most of my shows ending for the year and just trying to tie up loose ends, putting out some things that were, on fire, and just getting things to a calm place so I could have kind of a restart. So this week is that restart. So yeah, I don't really have a plan. I think the theme that I want to work with today is light, making sure to tend to your own flame, metaphorically, and making sure to keep light shining in the darkness. So that's all I'll say there. But let's turn the camera around and get the dog to settle down like we do. And it's just a single page today, not a whole spread, because that's a space that I have in the journal that's ready to be filled in. So yeah, shining our light. That's where my brain is today. All right, stay tuned. Let me turn this around. So I think I want to do this in some layers. I want to do a lot of dark colors, but I'm going to lay down some text first. This is from an old encyclopedia, and so I'm not going to worry about which way it goes. I just want to get this base layer down. I have pulled some stencils, and they're just covering up this page from the Mushroom Witch before. I can link that video. That was from Drawloween, so that was from October. So yeah, I've got the last dregs in my matte gel medium. I do have a new container on deck because this is such a staple. I can never run out of this. I don't mind the paper going in different directions. I kind of like that, but I don't want things to be terribly crooked. And maybe that seems silly, but that's a little Virgo trait that I just don't, if this text is going to be an element, kind of cross-hatching back and forth, I at least want it to be straight. Okay. Base layer done. I think, in the interest of time, I'm just going to squirt some paint right on here and smear it around with a palette knife. I'm going to pull some golden acrylic colors. That was Payne's Gray. This is black. So let's see how much coverage that gets me. I think I'm going to, since I am going to be doing a lot of stenciling, I think the next layer I'm going to stencil is probably a big either labyrinth or mandala, and keep it really dark so that there's a subtle variation there. So that's where I'm going to save the Prussian blue for that. Maybe mix in a little purple just so that I have this kind of galaxy celestial color palette, even though it's going to be design work and not, stars and whatnot. I'm going to let that dry, and that went on pretty thick. So I've got a couple errands to run. I'm going to pause here and come back to do some stenciling when this layer is completely dry. I've pulled a labyrinth stencil. I've pulled some moon phases and a goddess. I'm thinking of having her holding a flame, maybe. Not sure, playing with that. But I pulled those as my first thought. So yeah, stay tuned. We'll be back in a few. So I'm pretty happy with this. It's really hard to see the pattern. You almost see it just when you get the sheen on the page. So I'm not sure, you can see a little bit of up in this corner on video. But the colors are there. We've got the black, the blue, the purple. So I'm feeling kind of dark sky, even though it doesn't have a galaxy effect and the pattern is a lot more subtle than I expected it to be. I think I want to put the goddess in with like a gesso and modeling paste combo. So before I do that, I'm going to stencil in the moons because the moons will dry quickly and the thicker bit won't. So I just want to get her centered on the page. I'm not going to do the moons that she has here. I'm going to do larger moons on either side of her. So the whole page is going to be really circular. Because my concepts were about the light, I'm going to do a flame over her head. And I'll paint that in afterwards. But for right now, I'm actually just going to trace her in because I think the sheen of the graphite will show up when I want to figure out where the moons are going to go. I'm going to do this in white first, and then I might go back into it with more white if I want to get it brighter white, or with some, I have golden iridescent silver, but I also have stainless, which actually looks a little nicer. It's a little more silvery. And I was thinking, maybe I'd do one whiter and one more silvery, so it was like dark side of the moon, light side of the moon, but I just like this circular format with her in the center. It's almost a little bit of a kind of yoni shape on either side. So yeah, that works. Let's let this dry for just a sec, and then we'll go ahead and stencil her in. This video might have to come out on Thursday because I think I'm going to have to let this dry before I do some tinting over top of this modeling paste. So depending on when you're seeing this, you'll know whether that proved to be true or not. Yeah, sometimes there just aren't enough hours in the day. And although I have a heat gun and I like to use it, I don't want to cause the modeling paste to like dry too fast and crack. I'm not sure if it would, but I haven't tried that, so I just don't know. Stay tuned. We'll be back in a sec. So I'm going to make a mix. It's about half gesso and half modeling paste. It's going to be kind of thick. I think I'm going to put it on through the stencil with a palette knife. And I definitely want to clean the stencil right away. I mean, I have a terrible habit. You've seen my stencils. They're not clean. But in this case, I want to clean it right away because the modeling paste, I don't want it to, you know, mess up the details. I don't want it to get stuck inside the stencil and obscure, you know, the image. Just a drop of sepia so that it'll have kind of a warm tone. That was a drop and a bubble. And this is watercolor ink, P.H. Martin. Yeah, this probably isn't going to give me much, but at least it won't be stark white. I think I'm going to go ahead and smear this out and not have this in her body. I like the thickness of this modeling paste. It's making me want to press a stamp into it. It was so wet. We've got a lot of that suction, you know, like where it pulled up. But when this dries all the way, those impressions, you know, if you put a little coat of watercolor over top of that, the impressions really give that a place to puddle, and it dries really nicely. So there, I'm gonna let that dry. Yes, I am cleaning this off my stamp. I have a wet wipe, but it's not quite wet enough, so I'm just using a little water as well. I can do a little silver before we call it done for this day. I am going to have to finish this tomorrow. So yeah, first thing tomorrow, a little watercolor on top of the goddess where the modeling paste will be dry and textural. So that'll bring out that texture. And the flame painted in. Kind of above her head, inside the circle of her arms. We'll see if we need a few more bright white accents on the moons, since I have gone over them with the darker of my two silvers. So technically this is iridescent stainless steel. It's also a little more granular than the silver, which I like. But yeah, those are going to be my moons. All right. Stopping for today. Sorry this one was a day late, but I will see you in the morning and we'll finish this one off. So just popping in really briefly, want to do a couple finishing touches on this page. That was gesso that I put down first. I want that to have a minute to dry before I break out the acrylic paints to do that kind of flame as she's kind of holding and caretaking her own light. I want to try a little watercolor over top of this texture here. I really want to bring out the texture itself, and having the watercolor kind of puddle in those grooves is an effect that I like. I think it's pretty satisfying. So you can already see how it's really sinking down into the details there. Excuse me. Perfectly happy with the moons in the white stencil with the silver over top. Not going to touch those at all. So really almost finished. Just a few touches. Yeah, these touches are so small, I'm not even going to worry about putting paint out on a palette. Yeah, just decided to add a little text, some of the intention behind the page. Doesn't matter that it's not completely legible. If you see it in person, you can probably read the words, but that really feels like the mark of my hand, but also my thought process behind the page. So hopefully that sparked some ideas for you, and remember to, whatever you need to do to tend to your flame, your creative energy, your sanity, do so. Shine your light. Thanks for tuning in, and as always, subscribe to the channel, click the thumbs up, ring the notification bell, all those YouTube things, and look for another weekly spark coming out next Wednesday. But for now, thanks for tuning in. Have a good rest of the week.